This evening's keynote speaker is an explorer with a lifelong dedication to opening the space frontier. He is a graduate of Harvard University, the NASA Academy, and the International Space University, and the author of numerous articles for online and print publications. He is a trustee of the Students for the Exploration and Development of Space, the world's largest student space organization. He has himself logged more than 45 minutes of waitlist time. And if that wasn't enough, at work, he is the Vice President for Special Projects at Virgin Galactic, the world's first space line. Please welcome to the stage Mr. William Pomerantz.
Well, thank you, everyone. I must admit, Gunhild didn't tell me that I was going to be following after that speech, and I'm not sure I would have accepted if I'd known what I had to come just behind. That was a fantastic moment. There wasn't a dry eye back in the green room. Despite that, I'll say it is truly a pleasure for me to be here tonight speaking with the writers and illustrators of the future, because this event really, to me, is a celebration of several of my favorite things. Creative writing, incredible illustration, obviously fantasy and science fiction, but also it's about the combination of excellence and potential. Now, either of those two things by itself is pretty incredible, I think. But when you link the two of them together, that's when things get really interesting. If someone's just starting out in a new field and they've already demonstrated excellence, that's when the world sits up and takes notice. And that's what I found here meeting some of you tonight. And as I read through the advanced copy I got of this year's collection, it's the combination, excellence and potential. You know, I guess that when you've already received the blessing of incredible judges like the ones you've met already during the introductions, you probably don't need any further praise. But then again, I recognize you all are just starting out, so since this probably hasn't gotten old just yet, let me say, damn, y'all are good. Give yourselves a round of applause. Well done, well deserved. You know, I'm also happy to be here tonight because I really feel like I'm in a room full of kindred spirits, of my brothers and sisters, because each of us, we're all intensely interested in the future. You know, it's in the name of the event, for goodness sakes. Well, I'm going to go against the grain for just a minute here and talk a little bit about the past, because you see, today is something of a holy day for many of us in my industry. I'm not talking about the season premiere of Game of Thrones, as wonderful as I'm sure that's going to be. I'm sure you all TiVoed it. No, actually, I want to talk to you for a minute about this guy that you'll see up on the slides here. It was exactly 54 years ago today that the era of human spaceflight began. On April 12th of 1961, Yuri Gagarin blasted into orbit, making him the first ever human being to do so. Now, yeah, all right, exactly. Applause for Yuri. You know, Gagarin was only 27 years old. He was a 5'2" first lieutenant in the Soviet Air Force. His flight was pretty brief. It didn't last as long as this award ceremony. I may not be saying that much. But, and the mission plan actually called for him to bail out of the vehicle and land by parachute because his capsule didn't even have a powerful enough braking system to bring him down safely. Partly because of that, he landed way off target in the middle of a field somewhere where he confused the hell out of a farmer and her daughter. Now, obviously, this mission was a long, long ways away from a trip in the Millennium Falcon. But still, it's spaceflight. It's true spaceflight. For the first time ever, a human being had finally gotten off of this rock. It was like that moment in time when the first fish crawled out onto dry land. It's amazing. You know, and largely by coincidence, today is also the anniversary of another key space milestone. On April 12, 1981, 20 years to the day after Yuri's flight, NASA's first space shuttle climbed up into orbit. Now, this vehicle was quite different than Gagarin's. These vehicles were called space shuttles for a reason. They were designed to spend their time shuttling back and forth between the surface of this planet and low Earth orbit. They were supposed to fly at least once a week. That was our expectation. You know, we realized that we hadn't yet built the Starship Enterprise, but we thought at least we'd mastered the trusty shuttlecraft. But as it turns out, that's not really what happened. If you fast forward 34 years from the first shuttle flight until today, if you add up every single person who's ever been to outer space, from Yuri Gagarin up through the 6 astronauts who are on board the International Space Station right now, you get a total of 547 people. Now, perhaps for some of us, for some people in the world, that number might seem like enough, but not to me, because I'm a science fiction fan, damn it. In science fiction, if your species hasn't even managed to send 1,000 people into space, things don't end well for you, right? Yeah. You know, if we want the story to end well for us, and heck, if we even want to be interesting enough to be mentioned in the story, we need to increase that number by a lot. And it's not just a question of numbers, because it turns out that although those 547 astronauts are, bona fide heroes of epic proportions, they're amazing men and women, but they don't really represent us as a species. I'm not just talking about the fact that they've shown almost no diversity whatsoever of gender or ethnicity or age. I'm also talking about the fact that they haven't shown any diversity in terms of the types of skills that they have mastered before being selected as an astronaut. We've seen lots of the world's most incredible fighter pilots go to space, along with some of our best physicists and physicians and a few other things. But I think we in this room and watching online, I think we can agree it would be even nicer to see our finest authors and illustrators having a chance to explore space too. Yeah, along with our most talented playwrights, our actors, photographers, and everything else. I haven't had the chance yet to meet each and every single person in this room. That will take a while. But despite that, I still feel pretty comfortable guessing that all of us would like to go to space, even though none of us in this room actually have. If you're a writer or illustrator of the future, how much better would your artwork be if you'd had a chance to actually experience spaceflight for yourselves? Let's imagine that 15 years from now, the grand prize in this very event, the 2030 edition of the Writers and Illustrators of the Future Award, let's imagine that includes a flight to space. How great would that be? Yeah? Yeah. All right. Now, I don't want to put words in the mouths of the event organizer here and suggest that is going to, in fact, happen, although call me if we want to make that happen. But what's really exciting to me is that finally we live in a future where that's actually plausible. Because finally, 54 years after Gagarin's flight, we as a species are almost ready to truly open up the space frontier. Now, I'm here today to speak to you as part of a team that spends every day working to accomplish exactly that. Every day, about 500 friends and I spend our time building the world's first commercial space line. Our goal is to increase that number. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. What we spend all of our time doing, our goal is to increase that number of 547, to make it into something much, much larger. And this, what you're going to see on the slides now, this is how we're going to do it. This is a vehicle called Spaceship Two. It is, I swear to God, an 8-seater reusable space plane. This is the kind of thing I would picture in my mind's eye when I was a 4-year-old playing with Lego, or when I was a 14-year-old reading one of my favorite novels, probably written by someone in this room. And now it's a reality. I could talk to you for hours about this vehicle, but my favorite thing about Spaceship Two is that in order to get on board, you don't need to have logged 1,000 hours in the cockpit of an F-22. You don't need a PhD in astrophysics. You don't need to be an Olympic-class athlete. Heck, you don't even need to have 20/20 vision, and thank God for that. You don't need to get a crew cut and shave off your beard. You don't need to move to Houston or to Star City in Russia. All you have to do is buy a ticket. Now, admittedly, those tickets are pretty expensive, but, so were the first computers, the first cell phones, the first airline tickets, the first cars. And just like those things, these early adopters are paving the way for the price to get lower for the rest of us. And because basically anyone can buy a ticket, we will be flying into space the first painter, the first actor, the first sci-fi author. We're going to be flying the first ever citizen from dozens of different nations. We'll be flying the first ever female astronaut from dozens more that have already flown a man. I fully believe that one day we will fly the first winner of this contest into space. Yeah, heck yeah. And what we offer to each astronaut, which I hope means we're going to offer to each and every one of you, is a chance to ride on top of an honest-to-goodness rocket. To feel the thrill of these high G-forces followed by this amazing and blissful sensation that is weightlessness. And you're going to get to see this incredible view with your own eyes. Now, I know everyone in this room has seen a million pictures of the Earth from space. It's probably like the startup screen on your smartphone or your computer at home. But if you talk to those 547 people who have gone already, they'll all tell you, without exception, that it doesn't matter how many pixels you have on your tablet or your TV, there is quite literally nothing on Earth that can prepare you for the experience of seeing our home planet from above. I feel so incredibly lucky to be alive at a time when this is possible. And through some kind of, miracle or cosmic coincidence, I actually get to work on this thing every day. I mean, I actually work, no kidding, I work in a spaceship factory. Really, that is where my job is. Some days I get to go to work at an honest-to-goodness commercial spaceport. It's pretty much Mos Eisley minus some scum and some villainy, and plus a desk that has my name on it. It is a miracle. If you'd asked me when I was a 5-year-old what job I would have when I grew up, I would have told you I would have worked in a spaceship factory. And somehow I was right. It's just that, The strange thing is that somehow in the interim between 5-year-old me saying I would work in a spaceship factory and today's me actually doing it, I learned that idea was impossible and silly, and I gave it up. And then I had to unlearn all that and go back to the optimism that I had as a kid. And really, that's why I wanted to be here tonight. Because I owe a huge debt to all of you, to those who have come before you. Because it was through science fiction that I learned that optimism in the first place. And it was through science fiction that I reclaimed it once again, rather than falling victim to the jaded skepticism of our modern world. It was science fiction, really, that taught me that 547 astronauts is nowhere near enough, not even close. It was science fiction that taught me that supporting a mission to hunt for rogue asteroids or distant super-Earths, that was an awfully good use of my taxpayer dollars. It was science fiction, and I'll admit more than a little bit of fantasy, that taught me that I could somehow marry a brilliant and beautiful woman from a distant foreign land who spends her days driving a nuclear-powered robot with a laser eye that's on the surface of a neighboring planet. And somehow that exact thing actually happened to me. She did not know I was going to say that tonight. When I think back on my career, I recognize that science fiction and fantasy have pushed me further on my best days, but I also know that they've helped carry me through my worst. Most of you, if you follow Virgin Galactic, follow what we're doing, you'll already know about the tragic accident that happened on a test flight of Spaceship Two last year. And I can't speak for all of my colleagues, but certainly for me, as I tried to make sense of what had just happened and what was going to come next, I can't tell you how helpful it was for me to remember that, you know what? Even the USS Enterprise sometimes broke down. Even Paul Atreides made some mistakes. Even Ender Wiggin lost some pilots in pursuit of a noble goal. Now, to some people, the idea that I would take comfort in those stories might sound absurd, but it occurs to me that perhaps as people who are dedicating yourselves in your professional life to pursuing science fiction and fantasy, maybe each of you have had people tell you that your work is absurd. But here in this room, we all know better. We know without a doubt that what we do can change the world, and so say we all. So say we all. You're supposed to, come on, you're science fiction fans. So say we all. Dang it, all right. I want to tell you about one other thing that science fiction has taught me. All these books I've read and movies I've watched. It's taught me that when you have the ability to change the world, you have an obligation to use it. I hope for good, but make your own decisions, Each of you authors, each of you illustrators, you're already doing that in one important way, by inspiring new visions of tomorrow. But I'd like to end my remarks tonight by suggesting one additional way for you to harness this power of yours. As I travel around the world and I talk to audiences about what I do at work at Virgin Galactic, I've discovered that really almost everyone I meet is a fan of space exploration. But I've also found that for the most part, even the most diehard, passionate fans feel powerless to do anything that will actually help. I find that most people believe that unless you've got a PhD in engineering from the best school in the country, the only thing you can do to contribute to the cause is cheer it along from the sidelines. I got good news. That's not true. Today, more than ever, there are hundreds of ways that people of absolutely any background can make a positive contribution. There are entire websites out there. Here's one, spacehack.org. These sites all list dozens of ways that you can do honest-to-goodness work to advance the exploration of space. You don't need a fancy degree. You don't need $1 billion. You don't need to be a child genius or River Tam or something. You just need passion, a little bit of time, and an internet connection. Now, each of you young, new writers and illustrators, you've already got fans. And after tonight, you're going to have a lot more fans. As you progress in your careers, you're going to have a chance to meet those fans, whether they're sending you fan mail or engaging you online in social media or asking for your autograph at a convention. And maybe when this happens, you'll be a little bit like the main character in one of the short stories in this year's anthology, Rough Draft. Maybe that'll feel a little awkward for you, these people coming up to you and praising your work. Maybe you won't know exactly what to say to those fans. Well, here's my recommendation. When you discover that your book or your illustration has lit a fire in a reader's heart, I'd like you to encourage that person to use that fire to carry the torch of humanity out into the cosmos. And you've already done the hard work of converting them from an uninterested person into an enthusiast. Perhaps now you can convert them from an enthusiast into a contributor. And who knows where some of them are going to go from there. I bet that if you do that, thank you. I'm willing to bet that if you do that, then in a few years you're going to find that they're returning the favor, and now they're pushing you even further because they're giving you ideas that you might never have dreamed of on your own. Now, I'm not the one in the room who's the writer or illustrator of the future. That's all of you, and that's not me. But I can tell you that that is most certainly the type of future that I would like to see. So thank you very much.